Okay, the cost function is the mathematical relationship between cost of production and the cost of minimizing output level. In the short run, we have two types of costs. We have fixed costs that are associated with the fixed input, typically capital, and we have variable costs. Okay, variable costs in our simple model of the production of the business firm, variable costs are related to the variable input, which is typically labor. So fixed costs don't change, variable costs do with output. Okay, so the total cost of production changes with output. So total cost is a function of output, and that's equal to fixed cost plus variable cost, which changes with output. Okay, when we get into the long run later in the semester, we'll see that all costs are variable. Okay, and there's no fixed cost. But for now, we're going to focus on the short run. Okay, the short run cost curves take on a particular shape in a typical production process. Okay, and the short run cost curves are graphed with output on the horizontal axis and money, where we find total variable and fixed costs, on the vertical axis. Note that this is different than on the production process, because the independent variable here is output, and then the outcome variable is cost. In the production process, we had output on the vertical axis. Okay, so the total cost curve is equal to the variable cost curve plus the fixed cost curve. Okay, so the total cost curve takes on the shape of the variable cost curve. Okay, fixed costs don't change with output, so that is a horizontal line. Okay, so the variable cost curve has a shape that is mildly reminiscent of the production function. Okay, here we have a situation where variable costs are increasing at a decreasing rate with the first few units of output, and then variable costs increase at an increasing rate with output. Okay, and it is familiar in that this represents the two stages of the production process. Okay, in the first stage, on the production side, output is increasing at an increasing rate with labor, and that leads to cost increasing at a diminishing rate with output. In the second stage of the production process, output is increasing at a decreasing rate with labor. Okay, so on the cost side, the variable costs are increasing at an increasing rate with output. Okay, and we'll look at that relationship more formally. Okay, but first let's see how we would graph these three cost curves with the example from Glass Inc., which is number 15 on page 173 in the textbook. Okay, so the rental rate for capital, our 8 units of capital, is $20. Okay, so that means our fixed cost is 8 times 20, which is $160. So I plotted this horizontal line at 160. Okay, the wage rate that we can hire workers is $60. And so if you multiply 60 by the labor column, you'll get the variable cost. So variable cost increase begin at 0, and then when one worker is hired, it's equal to 60. When the second worker is hired, variable costs are equal to 20, 120. So that's a linear relationship between labor and the variable cost. But since output goes through 2 stages of production in the part of the spreadsheet that I have plotted here, up to 7 units of labor, if you plot output against the variable cost, you get this curved line that's orange, and the data points are labeled with the circle. Okay, so variable cost increase. Okay, over the range of output. Okay, you can see that they're beginning to turn back, and that means that we're getting close to the third stage of production, which is not shown in figure 511 in the textbook. But that third stage of production would result in the variable cost curve curving back on itself. Higher cost and less output. Okay, and then the total cost is just the sum of fixed cost, of the fixed cost and the variable cost. So total cost when output 0 is 160. Total cost when output is 1 is 160 plus 60, or 220. And then the total cost curve, this green line with the data points indicated by squares, is just a vertical shift upwards of the total cost curve. And the difference between the two curves, total cost and variable cost, is the amount of the fixed cost.